Baylor might already have their next football coach in the locker room. The problem is he wears pads every Saturday.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of the Rogue Media Network. Appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. On this episode, we will break down more of Baylor's homecoming win over UCF and whether their next head coach is in the locker room right now, just on the team. Because for the second year in a row, they've found an unlikely source of inspiration to the point where I don't think we can call it an unlikely source of inspiration at this point. Plus, did Dave Aranda just admit that UCF made it easy on Baylor to win on homecoming? And finally, we will have a tribute to the true Baylor GOAT, Clyde Hart, one of the great minds in the history of track and field, not just at Baylor University, but for this entire country, paying tribute to one of the absolute legends of Baylor athletics. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. On the road again in a hotel. If you are the praying type, please get on it right now and pray that I can get through this entire episode on this absolute fecal matter Wi-Fi that I have to work with. Really hoping that the videos will play, but that's just another day in the life of an ex-pop star. It's becoming a weekly occurrence on this show. So I don't have anything negative to take away from Saturday's win over UCF for probably the first time all season. I thought it was the best game they've played all season, and genuinely no notes, like all positive. What I was trying to get at the post game is it doesn't change the bigger picture of things. Like, it doesn't change the last 4 years or the last 4 weeks that they beat UCF on Saturday. UCF's a decent team at best. They're not awful like some people want you to believe. They're certainly not as great as some of their underlying numbers might have said they were going into this game. They've certainly had an easy Big 12 schedule so far this year. So this is a nice win to win by 27 points. And for those who are saying like, oh, well, UCF just sucks. It's like, all right, bro, you were 4-4 going into this game. Like, we all want the coach fired. Like, you don't, what are you supposed to win by by 40 instead of 4 touchdowns? Like, you won by 27 points. I don't really care if they suck or not. You beat Oklahoma State by 18 and gave up 27. So this is a good win for Baylor. I just don't think it changes the bigger picture. And what we learned once again from this team is that when their backs are up against the wall, they can get it done. And I think a lot of us would have put their backs up against the wall a few weeks ago. And we would have put them up against it last year at 2-4. And that's when they responded. The way that Baylor sees it is not like, hey, Big 12 championship out of reach, college football playoff out of reach. How did we do it? How did we lose it that quickly with the talent that we have? To these guys, it's when our coach gets booed at the homecoming bonfire, it is right on the precipice of getting fired again. That is when the best comes out of them. And it comes from players-only meetings. It comes from one player in particular. Because last year at 2-4 going into the bye week, an unheralded hero, former walk-on, stepped up and rallied the team. According to Dave Aranda, that happened once again this week.
Mike Allen, who prior to the Texas Tech game last year, Mike spoke to the team. Mike spoke to the team last night. And when I called Mike up there, this standing ovation about for him. And Mike killed it again, And so you could feel there's a lot of momentum going into this one. Yeah.
Great follow-up question by Matt Mosley, by the way, of asking, have you thought about having Mike speak to the team every week? I mean, that clearly seems to be the mantra here. That clearly seems to be your key to success, is have Mike Allen, the special teamer, talk to the team before a big game. It happened before Tech last year. The rest was history. They won 6 straight games, and it happens before this one, which I was the most wrong about for a Baylor football game this year. Now, the first time it happened, I thought, okay, that's great. Someone unlikely steps in and is going to rally the troops here. Sometimes that's what you need, right? You need a guy within that locker room to do it, a player within that locker room to do it. The second time, it's like, man, Dave Aranda needs to bring Mike Allen anywhere he goes, anywhere and everywhere, because maybe Mike Allen should be the coach. You know, we talk about the motivating factors into this and getting a team fired up, getting a fan base fired up. Clearly, Mike Allen knows how to do it. I just don't know if Dave Aranda knows how to do it. But clearly, yesterday or Saturday, whether you like to believe it or not, whether you think this is just Newt Rockne All-American kind of stuff, that was a team that was playing for their coach on Saturday. Whether you think they should be or not, whether you wanted them to lose, which I don't really understand, or not, that was a team that was playing for their coach, man. First time all season they've come out with their hair on fire and scored the first 14 points of a game. Like, that is the exact antithesis of what they've been under Dave Aranda. Slow starts week after week after week, season after season. For them to come out and play that aggressively and that well aggressively, that is a team that was fired up to get out there on the field for an 11 a.m. kickoff on Saturday. That was a team that knew what they were up against and, more importantly, knew what their coach was up against. These kids aren't dumb, man. They know they, for lack of a better term, dodged a bullet last year. And lack of a better term, because they earned that. They earned the dodging of the bullet, right? They won 6 straight games, but they knew how close it was last year and how close it was again and how close it is again this year, because they're not out of the woods yet. Dave Aranda's not out of the woods yet by any stretch of the imagination. But this was a team that was playing for their coach. And there's a lot of Baylor fans that won't be able to conceptualize that because they don't see a fired up Dave Aranda and they hear about Mike Allen and they roll their eyes and think, man, why does this guy have to step in and fire up our team? Why can't our coach do that? But that was the first time this season where I thought, okay, this Baylor team was playing for Dave Aranda. Like, they knew what they were up against here. They knew what he was up against, and they went out there and were the opposite of everything they've been all year in the best ways possible. Because you got to give them some credit, man. You got to give the defensive coaches some credit. Even if it's just for one game, you can give them credit for one game. But to do what they did defensively and to finally get that run game going, like, that's what this should have looked like all year. This is what it should have looked like against Kansas State, whatever that was, 4 weeks ago. You know, that's what it should have looked like against Oklahoma State at the end of September. And it's woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? But that was a team that knew what their assignment was on Saturday and got it done for their coach, whether we all like it or not. And to the fans who are rooting for a loss, I said this on the postgame on Saturday. I understand it. I understand why you think that way. I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it ever. And does Dave Aranda have his job saved if they get to 8-4? If they win out and get to 8-4? Yeah, he probably does. Probably does. That would include some somewhat impressive wins. Somewhat impressive wins to get down there. Certainly Utah would be an impressive win. Houston, probably still impressive. I still think Houston's got a good team, even though that disaster they put out there on Saturday. So yeah, if they went 8-4 and they beat a couple of good teams to get to that, then yeah, Dave Aranda's job would probably be saved. And then we can cross that bridge when we come to it of whether these were good wins or not for the future of Baylor football. But right now his job is saved for another week because he was dead as a doornail if they lost this game. That was it. Like, they were going into a bye week, 4-5, 3 straight losses, and right at 500, right? With that, because he's he would have been 35-35. So would have been absolute dunzo if they didn't win this game. But they did. And it was a good performance from Baylor. Let me know what your favorite part about it was in the comment section below. Then, of course, be sure to like, subscribe, all that good jazz, and help us keep our throne of the #1 Baylor football show on YouTube. Did Baylor win it, or did UCF lose it? That's not coming from me. That's a question that's essentially posed from what Dave Aranda said. Let's hear from him next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by Game Time, the only place I go to get my tickets. And that is no lie. It is the number one source because you guys know there's nothing better than being at the game. College football, concerts, comedy shows, no matter what it is, you want to be there. But actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Those endless queues, the hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, it's such a mess. But that's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you actually pay. The app makes it super simple, so easy I can do it. I could see the exact view from my seat before buying, and that is huge. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Back here on Locked On Baylor after the Bears squeaked away a 27-point victory over UCF on Saturday. And I said this earlier in the show. I said it on the post game. This was the most wrong I've been about a Baylor game this year. Even the Auburn game. Okay? I did not expect at this juncture of the season that Baylor was going to be able to put out a defensive effort that was that good. To hold the team to 225 total yards, to hold the team to 3 points, to hold a top 20 rushing offense in America to 74 yards on the ground for how bad this defense is. Like, credit all around. Kudos all around for this team, albeit for one game, but kudos all around. Like that is a heck of a performance that you should feel good about no matter what your record is, right? You should still feel good about that. That said, after the game, Dave Aranda, obviously, as always, honest to an absolute fault, Dave Aranda. He says after the game that UCF might have actually made it a little easier on the Bears than they expected. And this is with the Golden Knights coming off a bye week.
I thought that we're able to simplify some things. I think, if there's 5 calls, today there are 3. And then I thought that we really kind of honed in on kind of their core stuff, and they ran their core stuff, which helped. I think in the past maybe there's been maybe too many calls, and then we hone in on core stuff, and the team we play doesn't run them, And so it kind of lined up today, which was good. But I thought, more than that, though, really more than that, is that the guys woke up choosing to be great and choosing to, no matter what, if stuff didn't line up, they were going to go attack it. I think that was the biggest thing.
Okay, so did Baylor win or UCF lose? Dave Aranda kind of gave you a little bit of both in there. He probably knew that we were going to clip that for the show today and was like, more importantly than that, our guys showed up. And he's right. You still got to show up to play. But I thought that was interesting of like a team that's coming off of a bye week, right, has had to mold themselves, have been malleable this year because they've had a couple different quarterbacks in. And yet, he says when there might have been 5 calls, there was only 3. This was this archaic offense coming after us. And they didn't get out of their base, and we didn't get out of our base, and our base was better. And I just couldn't believe that. I mean, obviously you can because it happened, right? They only gave up 74 rushing yards. So it did happen like that. But for Dave Aranda to basically say this is a team that game plans every week, and they brought the wrong game plan. Like, right? Baylor did not get out of their base defense, which has been 130th in some categories out of 136 FBS teams. And Scott Frost is like, yeah, you know what though? Why don't we just keep doing this? And it didn't work. I was terrified that UCF was going to run all over them. They didn't. Again, 74 yards. I thought they were going to hold the ball the whole game. They did not. Baylor had a distinct edge in time of possession, 34-26 in that category. I thought that Baylor's defense was not going to be able to wreak havoc. They were not going to be able to make negative plays. That was not the case. They had a couple of TFLs in this game, which 2 is not a lot, but for this Baylor defense, it kind of is. By the way, it's 9 on the other side for UCF. They got a sack in there, which they don't normally do. They didn't do that last week. They forced a couple turnovers in there, forced a couple of interceptions, which, again, they don't do. So, yeah, Baylor came to play. But even if they did come to play the way they did, it probably should have been like 30-14, 28-14, something like that. Instead, it was 30-3. And so part of that is UCF not getting out of their offense. And Dave Aranda and Matt Powledge probably over there being like, okay, if you're just going to keep doing this, we will keep stopping it. We'll just keep stopping it, which is likely what Hugh Freeze and Auburn thought on the other side of the ball when those two teams played in week 1, of saying, oh, am I just going to get 4 yards of carry? Okay, then we'll just continue to do that. But the other thing that was surprising about Baylor, and I'm going to highlight some players later on in the week, actually probably tomorrow, if we're being honest, highlight some players who stepped up in this game, but really just the entire run game in general. Obviously, Kaden Knighton was the takeaway, to get over 100 yards for the first time in his career. But how many games this year did you say afterwards, man, Baylor worked the line of scrimmage in this game, both sides of the ball? Was there any game this year that you said that? How about any game against an FBS opponent? I mean, I guess Oklahoma State, they did a lot of other things wrong in that game, but their line of scrimmage, I do remember being good in that game, not great. This was a perfect all-around performance, I think, for Baylor. I really do. Like, I don't know what you could take negatively from this game other than maybe, they scored 14 points in the first quarter and then 16 the rest of the game. That's not a big deal to me. You gave up 3. That's not a huge deal on my end. But maybe the most impressive part, other than the run defense, was you really controlled the line of scrimmage big time in this game. And that's something that has been a problem for Baylor. It was a problem last year. Even in the win streak, it was a problem last year. Was not the case on Saturday. And of course, as I've mentioned for the third time, the big takeaway is going to be the run defense. But this defensive backfield was pretty good again. They are a very Jekyll and Hyde kind of part of this defense. The run defense is always Hyde, I think, is the bad one. They're always that. But the defensive backfield has been up and down and shown a lot of up this year. First time I've seen Calvin Simpson Hunt in a game. I don't know about you guys. I watch every snap of Baylor football. It was the first time heard his name called on a broadcast this year. He had a pass interference penalty in the game. That was the first time that I heard it. But these guys got off the field a couple of times. They really defended well. Caldre Williford, I think is how you say it. Caldre Williford. I've been saying it wrong the whole season. He's been phenomenal. His PFF grades are among the tops every week, and he was very good once again for Baylor. He has been a huge kind of unsung hero on the defensive side of the ball because Baylor's defense has been brutal this whole year. But did Scott Frost, national championship coach, as well as national championship quarterback, I believe, the national championship coach, Scott Frost, make it easy on Dave Aranda, keep one of his colleagues in the conference? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on the path towards 5,000 subscribers, and man, are we cooking. We're getting pretty close, actually. So we need your help. Go tell your friends, because I know all of you are already making it your first listen today and every day. Coming up next, we're going to pay tribute to the Baylor GOAT. Of anything you want to talk about, the Baylor GOAT. Clyde Hart, unfortunately, passed away this weekend. Let's talk about the great coach coming up next on Locked On Baylor. Today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by FanDuel, my weekend source of passive income. And you guys know it. We talk about it every week on this show. NBA is back. And no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine those live bets, combine them into a little same game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game. Let me say that again. New customers, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Man, a tough loss for the Baylor community this weekend. Legendary track coach Clyde Hart died on Saturday at the age of 91, lived a long, full, great life. And what a man, first off, as someone I got the pleasure of interviewing a few times, was welcomed into his home for one of them. Great guy, but truly the Baylor GOAT, by the way. Like, you want to talk about the great coaches that have come through Baylor. Obviously Grant Taft's an icon, Kim Mulkey, Felicia Mulkey. There's all kinds of great baseball. I was going to say Mickey Sullivan as well. A lot of great coaches that have come through the ranks at Baylor. No one has a bigger impact on their sport than Clyde Hart. Clyde Hart makes Baylor quarter miler U and coaches all kinds of gold medalists, right? Some who didn't even go to Baylor, but Jeremy Warner, he was coaching Will London, who was at the last Olympics. He coached Michael Ford, the current Baylor track coach, and of course, coached the greatest athlete ever to play a sport at Baylor. And that is Michael Johnson, fastest man alive, maybe the greatest American sprinter. Learned it from Coach Hart. Like, you want to talk about legends of Baylor University. It starts with Clyde Hart. He's got the track named after him. He's one of the most recognizable names in the sport. And he made Baylor and Waco his home for a long, long time. He ran at Baylor, and then goes back to Arkansas, where he's from, and is coaching and teaching at Little Rock Central in the late 50s, early 60s. Talk about a Forrest Gump man, knows how to live a life. Like, he was right in the middle of this. And then goes back to Baylor in 1963 and dies in Waco. Like, is there for the next 60 plus years. Makes it his home. Is coaching individually coaching Baylor track athletes after he retires in 2019. Like, this dude is Baylor track. He is Baylor in so many ways. And obviously the tributes rolling in all throughout the night. It was tough to hear the news. Obviously 91 years old. Again, that is a full, long life. But last time I interviewed him, like actually talked to him formally, was 2.5 years ago. And he was still out there every day. Like, he was still doing it. He was still training guys. He was still helping out Will London, man. Like, he was still up and at him, like sharp as a knife. And I feel for him. I feel for the Baylor community, obviously for his family, and for the track community at large. Because again, his impact goes well beyond Baylor and well beyond just the confines of the Baylor track team. It goes all across the sport and all across, the Olympics. He told me he'd been to every Olympics since 1964. Up until Tokyo in 2020 or 2021, I guess it was when it was, because of COVID. So it's maybe the best coaching hire that Baylor's ever had, and certainly one of the great ambassadors of this university and of this community. And again, just stinks. I mean, I could list the accolades, but I'd be here all day long. Like, do yourselves a favor if you're not familiar. Like, look it up. All the gold medalists that he's coached, the national coaches of the year, the times where he wasn't originally slated to be on the staff for USA Track, and athletes would say, we'd like to bring Clyde Hart along with us, because that's happened. And it was, Baylor, non-Baylor, men's, women's, couple of different events. Obviously the 400 meter was what Baylor was made famous for. Obviously, again, quarter miler U. This is where Baylor's sports legacy really is, more than anything else, more than acrobatics and tumbling, more than women's basketball, more than football. It is within track and field. And Clyde Hart is not just one of the reasons why, he is the reason why. So prayers certainly go out to his family and to all those affected by this. Clyde Hart, man, one of one. And if you're doing any kind of Mount Rushmore of Baylor athletics, anything, Clyde Hart is at the top of that. He is the Baylor GOAT. No question, man. You could make great cases for Kim Mulkey and, of course, for athletes like, Brittany Griner and Michael Johnson and Robert Griffin III and Mike Singletary, but Clyde Hart, number one. 60 years of the very best the sport has to offer, and stayed at Baylor through the whole time. Because, by the way, Jack Patterson, the guy who was there before at Baylor, left for UT. That's how Clyde Hart got the job. And he told me a great story, last one, about how the University of Alabama was trying to get him in the 80s. I want to say he said early 80s. And they put the full court press on him to the point where he took a private plane out to Tuscaloosa and Bear Bryant was there to meet him. That's how much Alabama was about to put into their track program. And he stayed at Baylor. Like Scott Drew, right up there in the pantheon of great Baylor coaches as well. We remember him turning down Kentucky. Clyde Hart was the first one to do it when Baylor did not have a lot of money, when nobody had a lot of money for track. And he stayed here. So RIP, Coach Clyde Hart, man. One of one, the undisputed Baylor GOAT. If you have any Coach Clyde Hart memories, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We so appreciate you guys for the community that you have built here around your favorite show. We will see you tomorrow on Locked On Baylor.